What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in today's video, I want to look back at James Cameron's Avatar: The Game. And I'm doing this, obviously, in celebration of Ubisoft's newest game. I mean, Ubisoft actually did this too, but Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, releasing in just a few days. They seemingly forgot about it because it looks pretty okay to me. I'll be playing it, I'll be trying it out, but you know what? I haven't seen a gosh darn thing of this game online from them in like months. So I'm a little concerned as we get closer. This game, the one we're talking about in today's video, is not the best one to follow up because this game, I got some strong things to say about it. So I want to do a few things, right? I do want to look at kind of the origin and the history of this game because it's had a very up and down road to this point. I also want to say I'm in pretty big disagreement with like the new thinking, the way people are modernly thinking of this game. I do not agree. I do not agree with it whatsoever. Now, the game we're talking about in today's video is not the greatest game to follow up, so I really hope Frontiers of Pandora is going to be better than this one. To be honest with you, it doesn't have to do much, and this is where I think I'm going to drastically differ from what you've kind of seen online. I want to talk a little bit about the history of this game, the up and down nature that it's had, because I think in the modern age, it's been one of these Renaissance projects where you look back and you can see the other YouTube videos. There's some with like millions and millions of views talking about this game, saying, hey, this game is shockingly good or surprisingly good. I'm here to tell you controversially, no, that they are wrong. I am right. I mean, okay, we're all entitled to our own opinion here. I actually went into this never playing it before and really thinking, okay, this is one of those late 2000 hidden gems. A not movie tie-in game, and again, we'll talk about the origin, but a game that came out and the review scores of this game are not good. We'll talk about that too. But as time went on, people like appreciate it, and they didn't appreciate it for what it was back then, but they do now. Look, I'm all for that. I mean, we've done that actually on this channel. Like, I'm completely for games that have kind of gotten better as the years have gone on, or maybe had middling reviews, but you know what? You go back and you say, no, this game absolutely rocks. I like those stories. And honestly, getting this game, I thought I was going to be able to make that kind of video for you. I'm not. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you this game kind of sucks. And not even kind of. This game sucks, and I don't like it. And again, like, that's why I think Frontiers of Pandora needs to do really next to nothing to be a better game than this one. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about the game itself, and I have something to show you. I got the game. So, let me just say something here, okay? This is, when I talk about game preservation, this is a really important reason why I talk about it. You have no idea. Like, okay, this is not the most expensive thing in the world, right? This was with shipping and all that, maybe like $20, $25, okay? This game, you can only get on the consoles that it came out. Now, actually, I originally thought it was only on PS3 and 360. It's also on Wii. It's also, I think, on the DS. There's actually different versions of this game, and some of them operate differently from each other, which is pretty cool. We're still, I guess, in that era back in 2009 where we're doing that. Obviously, it becomes less and less, and really coming out of like the Game Boy and I guess going into the DS and stuff, you started to see less of it, but this actually is an example of that. The Wii functions a little bit different with using the motion, analog sticks to make the bow, like simulating the bow, which is pretty darn cool. And I could imagine that. In fact, the bow shooting in this is one of the cooler things that the game has going for it. I think the DS version is more of like a top-down thing. It's not even anything remotely close to what I was playing on PS3. So there's that. But again, in terms of game preservation, you cannot play this backwards compatible. Obviously, PS3 to anything else is not backwards compatible. But Xbox, funny enough, and they are pretty darn good with backwards compatibility, this is not on that list. The list of games from the 360 generation that work on Xbox One, Series S, and X, which I was praying. I was saying, okay, well, obviously PS3, I know what to expect, but 360, can I get the 360 disc and then just play it? No, you actually cannot do that. Obviously, it's not on any of the store pages. You can find it, but you can't actually purchase it. So, when I talk about game preservation, 2009, this is 2009, and it's kind of, like, it's definitely not easy. You got to go out of your way to get this game, all right? So I got on PS3, played it on PS3, and look, I know where we are. I know what year we're talking about, 2009, okay? I'm not expecting the world from this game, but look, gems like Infamous, gems like Prototype, and Prototype is an actual gem. This was the same year as those two games, so I just want to throw that out there as well. Okay, so we have the front. Let me show you the back. I mean, it's a pretty disc. I honestly really do like this like box cover. Comes with the manual. The manual is actually kind of thick. I do respect that about it. I think it's all black and white, so that's kind of disappointing. Yep, nothing to see there. Okay, so I popped this sucker in, right? And this is actually the first time I turned on my PS3 in a very, very long time to play, a game for this channel. Normally, I do it through other means, not necessarily PS3, but other games, or I've played PS2 games on this channel and just haven't needed to, actually turn on a PS3. Again, I understand, the era we're in and all that stuff, and I keep saying that because it's important, because I pop the sucker in, I press start, all this jazz, and we go into the game, okay? Now, I'm telling you right now, the reviews for this game we're only at like a 59 to 60. Okay, this game would be considered not good. I guess it depends on your review scale. Like if you see a game that gets a 6, technically that's not a bad game. In fact, technically it's above average. If 5 is the average, right? Depends on your scale. Now, I'll be honest with you. Well, number one, I don't really care about review scores. But number two, when I see a 6, the first thing that comes to mind is not good. Okay, when you see a 6 out of 10, I would say, all right, that game's probably not very good. And again, the general idea with this game when it launched was not very good. All right, it had multiplayer. Multiplayer, I think, was shut down back in 2014. It lasted about 5 years, so that's pretty okay. But it wasn't received all that great. Sold pretty darn well, not at launch, but actually sold well over time. But I'm going in expecting, okay, I've seen the videos. I'm plugged into the retrospective scene on YouTube. I'm part of it. Heck, so I know what people are saying, and people are saying that this game deserves your respect. This game is better than you think it is, and again, it is absolutely not. So you start the game. Let's do visuals first, just kind of get out of the way. It's not pretty. There are times where it can look pretty okay. I wouldn't say the game is ugly. And again, I got to remember, all right, PS3, sometimes I'm talking about PS2 or Xbox. I've done Halo and Gears of War 1 for both of those. I've done a lot of PS2 kind of era games. Got to remember where we're coming from. But, again, Infamous and all those kind of games that came out in 2009. Actually, Uncharted 2 was freaking 2009. So I'm not really giving this game an excuse. It doesn't look, it maybe looks average for the time. Doesn't look anything above that, okay? Scenery and stuff, obviously the blue and the colors that kind of pop off with this, I guess, universe, that definitely comes through with the game. Oh, something I probably should say. You might be asking, well, Alex, do you not like this game because you're not the biggest fan of the movies? It's a fair question, and I want to address it. No, that's actually not the reason. I'm coming at this, and I came at this strictly from a gamer perspective. I feel like I'm tapped in. I kind of know what makes a game good, makes a game bad. So I was kind of coming at it through that. I like the first Avatar movie. I wouldn't say I love it. I've actually not seen the second one yet. So I'm not massively in love with this universe, but I can respect it. I'm willing to also kind of buy into the universe if the games sell it to me. In fact, Frontiers of Pandora, the new one, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Continue to sell, or just sell in general, the premise of this world on me, and do it through a medium that I'm actually way more into, right? Way more into gaming than movies. I am into movies, but just obviously gaming is my number one thing. So that's how I'm coming at this, right? Show me through James Cameron's Avatar the game, show me I should care, right? And it did not. And in fact, it made me quit. So, okay, visuals, like I said, they're average. Sound is quite interesting. So I don't talk too much about sound on this channel when it comes to music. I normally only would talk about music if it really, really stands out to me, and doesn't really stand out to me. But the sound is an interesting one because the voice acting is kind of all over the place. I do think some people give a pretty good performance, and considering this is a prequel to the first movie, you do actually see some characters from the movie in this. And I think they actually, in terms of actual Hollywood actors, I think they do pretty darn good. In terms of the actual voice, casting, when you're going around talking to people, they're giving you your objectives, it's 50-50. There's actually some that are completely fine, I think do their job well. I played as the male, and I don't know, there's a male and female. I think there's 12 of each you can pick from. And I would actually say the game kind of starts strong there, where it's okay, gives you enough variety. You got the human version and the Na'vi version. Okay, that's cool, and they look pretty different. So I assume it's only a male voice and a female voice, and then granted, I only played as the male. Not good. Definitely not good. And they don't have you talk all that much, and that's probably for a reason, but definitely not good. And then one other sound thing I want to kind of throw out, they have like dog-like, wolf-like things. I don't know what they're called. Again, I'm not the biggest fans of the movie, so I don't know what the species is, but you will be eliminating these time and time again. You know what I'm going to do? Let's just play you it. So why I wanted to do that is, I'm playing it. I have a little L-shaped desk, and I'm playing it over here on my monitor, and I have a dog that really likes to watch TV. She gets really, and she's like the weirdest dog my wife and I have ever had in our lives, okay? She really gets into it. You can tell her to watch the TV. She'll watch all that jazz. And, I'm playing this game, and this is in the very beginning. Like, the first enemy type that you'll eliminate is this one, and it continues over and over and over again. And they make the sound of a crying, screaming dog. So as you're eliminating just like dozens of these what sounds like crying, screaming dogs, it's like, this is insane. So it caught my wife's attention, it caught my dog's attention because she was doing like head turns at it, all that jazz. Not saying like, look, I'm not saying like, oh, it was off-putting and gave me like PTSD or anything. It was just like odd, and it was just a really weird like sound design choice where it literally sounded like a dog, even though it's supposed to be like an alien species. I don't know why it sounded the same, but that's how the game kind of starts. Technically, the game starts by bouncing around and talking to people. Now, this is actually one of my main criticisms of this game, is just the layout of it. So you bounce maps, like you're not in the same area every single time. I mean, they generally look like close enough to each other, but there is enough variety in them. Okay, I'll give them that. But what you do in this game is you bounce around point A to point B, going up to people. They'll tell you to do something, you go and do it, and then it'll tell you to go to somebody else. And look, I'm actually a fan of simplicity, okay? You tell me to do something in the game, I'm going to go walk over, do it, and come back if that's, what's required. The way this game does it, though, is so jarring to me. I don't even, my vocabulary is not that expansive. I really don't know if that would be the perfect word for it, but I was not impressed. Especially, I played hours of this. Early on, it is nonstop. And it's maybe exaggerating, I was going to say 10 to 15 seconds. There are some points in this game where you will talk to somebody. They'll give you 3 sentences of dialogue to do something. You'll walk maybe 10 feet from you, activate a cutscene. Then you'll walk another 10 feet, activate another cutscene. And it pulls you. It's one of those, we talk about it now, but you could have worked yourself around it back then as well. It's just pulling you in and out, in and out, in and out. You can't get into the world because, number one, it's so simplistic. And I mentioned, the graphics, they are nothing to say, oh, my God, this is one of the more beautiful games of the time. No, absolutely not. Okay, nothing about this game is visually, inspiring, right? So you're going around this world that you're not all that interested. It doesn't look all that great. You're told to do something, very mundane task. You'll go, you'll activate, a satellite beacon. You'll kill 2 enemies. Then you'll go to the next thing, do the same thing, come back. They'll tell you to go somewhere else. You'll go. There's times in the beginning of the game where you'll be walking, you'll do an objective, you'll get a call saying, okay, now go here. You'll walk your 15 feet, 20 seconds in-game time to get another call, and they'll say, okay, now do this. Time and time and time again. It's not good. It is terrible, I would say. Terrible game design. And this is how it starts. There's a couple cutscenes, right? It catches you up a little bit. You meet some people, and again, some of these people are acted pretty well, but very early on in the game, you realize, oh, this is simplistic, but it's also it's broken in a way, or broken up in a way where it is broken, where it just doesn't feel very good to do any of these things. And you say, okay, well, what about everything else? What about actually moving around? Well, you mentioned eliminating enemies. How's that? Also not good. I think one thing, the camera. The camera is bad. It's not remember PS2 era, the first Kingdom Hearts game? There were insanely bad cameras back in the early, even the mid 2000s. And I think we still have this issue, I think, to Naughty Bear, one of the worst games of all time, which I eventually want to cover on this channel. The camera was a big problem there. I'm not saying this is like that, because it's not. Those are some of the most egregious examples. This is not that bad. But you can tell immediately, moving around, shooting, the camera is it's not going to do it for you. And also, again, I remember where we are, what year we're in, but the frame rate, oh my dear God, the frame rate's terrible. You will be running around. And the way that this game is, by the way, it didn't like make me sick or anything. It didn't make me necessarily dizzy, but it took me probably a good solid hour to get my eyes adjusted to how this game is. The way the camera is pulled back, it's a third person, but the way that it is and the way that it moves with your character, imagine Gears of War, which also takes some getting used to, right? Because the camera kind of bounces with you. Your character will charge into cover and the camera has to follow. Gears is not the most like fluid camera where it's just not, but it's a very specific style that you kind of either get used to or you don't. I would liken this to that, but this is so much worse. This is something that you do not get as used to as Gears of War. It doesn't make as much sense. It is bouncy in the way that Gears is, but even worse. The frame rate is terrible, way worse than anything in Gears of War. So it keeps breaking up. You'll be moving around, and it's very loosey-goosey. So as you're like shooting the enemies, you're kind of like spraying them, and the camera's bouncing a little bit, and the aim isn't perfect, and the camera can't really follow, and the frame rate, it's just, it's really bad. Like, honestly, all those things put together, right? The camera on its own is I would say bad, but it's maybe not the worst of all time. The frame rate's pretty terrible, but it doesn't have to, hurt your experience. The idea of where the camera is for third person is also kind of odd, but it wouldn't break it. But you add those three things together, and you get a pretty terrible system, honestly. So what I'm getting at is, well, you could say, well, what about the actual gameplay? Driving vehicles is okay. That's one thing that I noticed I kind of had. And driving vehicles, I guess, also / driving or like piloting, captaining, whatever you want to call it. When you do animals, right? When you're the Na'vi and you're doing the species, they're pretty cool. And there is some variety there. There absolutely is. And I also like the general idea of this game of swapping between human and Na'vi. And also, this game has pivotal points where you make decisions that, in fact, one early on, maybe hour and a half in, completely changes like your allegiance in the entire game. It's actually pretty cool. The issue is, and I thought that would be a turning point. Early on, like I just said, you have a point where you say, okay, you get to choose. You can either be on one side or the other. And I'm not going to 1,000% spoil it, but in this way I'm spoiling it. So you get to choose, and I'm thinking, all right, this is pretty okay. Now it leads you into like again, a very basic gunfight that's not fun, and again, kind of highlights the weaknesses of this game. And then it just goes back to what it was doing. You continue to get the bad quests where you're going 50 feet away, doing something, getting a call to go somewhere else. It's the same thing. All it did, was make a big choice. So I honestly would like to throw that in, that I think, judging on comments that I've seen actually on other people's videos, I think the idea of swapping back and forth, that's something that appeals to people. And also those kind of major decisions is something cool. And it is cool. But the thing is, if the rest of the game sucks, what is it? And that's where I was. I quit maybe 3.5 to 4 hours into this game. Look, I'm going to be honest. I've read about the ending. I haven't seen basically the second half of this game, okay? Because I feel like I just saw enough. Actually, no. I don't feel, I know. I know I saw enough of this game because it just went back to what it was doing. So yeah, it has a couple cool things or cool concepts, but it'd be the same thing reviewing any game modern day. Oh, cool concept. Oh, but terrible execution. Like, it's the same thing. I honestly believe that's what this game is. Cool concept. It's, again, I mentioned early on, like, movie tie-in game. It's not, because it's a prequel and definitely does some different things, and the concept of switching is pretty cool, but at the same time, no. Everything that you do with it is just not good, and especially after that pivotal choice, there's some things that happen in the next hour and a half, 2 hours. Frame rate continues to get worse. They try to go big with explosions. There's a couple sequences where you're running through certain areas and you're kind of getting bombed as you go. That could be cool. But you know what? I just did that with Battlefield Bad Company 2, and I don't remember 2010, maybe is when Bad Company, so maybe it's got a year and a half on this game. A Bad Company 2, you're running through little cities, buildings, and you're getting bombed, you're getting destroyed, and it feels real. It also, everything is breaking around you, so I don't buy it. I don't buy it with this game, the fact that you're getting bombed, and the game just breaks. The game literally cannot handle it. The game freezes, and it actually did on me several times, it would pause and do these weird things where it could not handle the incredible amounts of bombing that was being performed at one time. So, yeah, honestly, from the gameplay perspective, piloting things and the abilities. The abilities are cool. You unlock them as you go, or you level up and they kind of just give them to you. You don't have to like put in points on anything. So those are neat. Like that changes up your play style a little. But generally, you're still going to be shooting things, and that's still where the game has a lot of problems. The AI is not smart. It's not fun to take out the enemy, like at all. To me, it's literally not fun whatsoever. So I feel like what we have, again, is a cool concept based off a very big IP with just nothing going well in this game. I gotta be honest, not only do I think it deserved the review scores that I have seen that the game got, I think it deserves less. I think this is, and I don't do scores. Watch my main channel, watch my last 50 reviews. You will not see me give a score, and I generally don't like it, but let's do it for fun. Like, if I were to give this a score, 4, maybe 3.5, 4, or 5, somewhere in that range. Like, it's very much below average, even for the time. There are plenty of 2009, 8. Dead Space was 2008, 7, 6. Like, I could keep going. Resistance was 07. I think there's just so many games. Halo. There's so many, and that's what happens with my mind. I just kind of keep saying it. There's so many games I'd rather play in this era than this game. I will not use. And that's what's, I think, important. And that's why I like, this channel being a retrospective channel. I like talking about these older games, and I'm trying to put it in perspective. I'm trying to remember the time. I think I'm being fair. I think even back in 2009, and I think that's actually where the reviews would get it right, this would be looked at as below average, at least to me. Definitely my score and the way I would look at it. This is a below average. It's a bad game. This is a bad game that I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't for this video, I wasted my money. I don't see myself replaying this game. Am I happy to have it? Yes. Physical media, game preservation is important. I think it's worth having this game, but I mean, would I have gotten it if it wasn't for this video? Probably not. Honestly, probably not. And honestly, it made me kind of distrust certain parts of the internet. Normally, they're right. Normally, I got to be real. Normally, when I see these video essays and they got their 1.2 million views, and they say, hey, this late 2000s game, it's actually fire. It's actually really good. And we were all kind of wrong about it back then. Normally, they're right. Normally, and I have done videos and said, you know what, we were all onto it, at least nowadays. We weren't onto it back then. For this one, they're not right. They're not right at all. The people that say that this is like shockingly good or like this is a surprise hit in 2023, play some other games, to be honest with you. Seriously, unless the 360 version is massively better, which maybe like the frame rate, but like, hey, you fixed the frame rate. Have you really fixed the game? To me, not really. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, I'll be actually playing Frontiers of Pandora on the main channel. If you want to watch my coverage on that later on in this week, it should be a better game, and actually I'm demanding that it be a better game than that thing. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next one.